Welcome into Georgia High School Sports Daily, powered by IBEW Local 613. From the Breda Pest Management Sports Desk, I'm your host, Landon Knight, alongside Craig Sager. Happy Wednesday, Craig. We are going to start with some breaking news. Camden County has parted ways with head coach Travis Rowland. And what we know about this Camden County team, they started off this season very strong, but this is actually the first time that they have missed the playoffs since 2017. They ended up going 1-4 in region play. Craig, what are your overall thoughts on this?
This is interesting. So we were one of the first shows, I think, to welcome Travis Rowland to the state of Georgia. He was coming off a great season at mainland Florida. And Camden County is a team that, when this job opened up, they wanted a championship coach. So he had just won a state championship in Florida at mainland. That was his alma mater. He actually won one as a player and a coach. And it's tough because Camden County is in this really difficult region, and this is a team that started out the season really hot, and I think they just ran into just a tough stretch of games. They ended up missing out on the playoffs for the first time in a while, but it was interesting. I asked Hayden if we were in the playoff rating system, because Camden County produced a winning record, would they have made the playoffs this season? They were, I think, the number 12 highest rated team. So they might have been in the playoffs as a 12 seed potentially, having home field. So they still had a decent season. Camden County is one of the most attractive coaching jobs in the state of Georgia, but it is tough. Coach Rowland's a heck of a coach. He was in here for 2 years, had some success, but ultimately they're going to move in a different direction. And Jack has the full story at scoreatl.com.
And Craig, our game of the week this week is going to be Lee County versus Sprayberry. That's going to be at Sprayberry Stadium. Today we're going to get the opportunity to hear from both of these head coaches. We know that this is going to be a really good matchup. Both of these teams are really competitive. We got to see this Sprayberry team earlier in the season, but what's going to be key overall in securing this win?
I think this entire region matchup is going to be very interesting because we've seen this season Sequoia, who's in Sprayberry's region. We've seen River Ridge, who missed out on the playoffs, but you look at that other matchup, you have Coffee Sequoia. Very intriguing. Coffee's a new team. Sequoia lost last year. That's going to be exciting. This one has a similar, unknown, because you look at Lee County, it's one of the best programs. They're going to travel well. They're not afraid of the playoff atmosphere. They've been doing what they're doing for a long time. They're very physical. But then Sprayberry, they look like they've taken a step forward from last season. So this is a game where they're going to have a lot of pressure on them as a potential favorite, even though you're going up against Lee County, one of the best teams in the state, and a team that really came up just short of a state title last year. So I think it's just the pressure of this game, and then Sprayberry having to defend home field. It's going to be very interesting.
And then, Craig, we also have got to talk a lot this season about coaches that have been in their first year of leadership. But with this Sprayberry team, this is actually Coach Fominaya's first year with the Yellow Jackets. Just talk about the leadership you've seen from him.
Well, I think he's done a good job of just seeing what has been working, where can they try to improve upon some things. But really, one of the key games, I think it was the Creekview game, where they're in a situation, it's overtime. They got to go for a two-point conversion. They give the ball to their quarterback, Jaden Duckett. He runs it in. So he has confidence in his players to make the play. I think that's what's been most impressive as a first-year coach, is knowing how to put his players in position to succeed.
Now let's get into our fast break headlines, starting with headline 1. Langston Hughes running back Quantavious Wiggins flips commitment from FIU to Wisconsin. And according to On3, on his visit to Wisconsin, he remarked, "They treated me well. It was really good that they won the game. It's crazy there. I did not expect that. I thought Wisconsin was a small state." On the field, this senior Wiggins has run for 823 yards and 14 touchdowns in 8 games. Averaging 9.6 yards per carry. He has also added 131 receiving yards on 5 catches. Craig, we got to see Wiggins' performance earlier this season against that Douglas County team, but just talk about what he brings to the field and how you see him doing at the next level.
Yeah, well, I think he has that track speed that you want in a running back. He's a 200-meter standout. Also, I think he's on the 100-meter relay team. We know how much speed Hughes has, so he has that breakaway speed. He's running behind a great offensive line. He's done phenomenal. I think it's interesting, but ultimately he found a place where he might not have been his initial choice, but now he's kind of been through the recruiting process and he feels at home, so that's a good sign.
Now let's take a look at headline 2. Camden County wide receiver Sean Green has announced his top 3 schools for his college decision, and he is listed at the number 121 overall player in the 2027 class by recruiting service 247 Sports. His recruitment has been narrowed down to Florida State, Georgia, and Georgia Tech. Craig, we mentioned earlier that Camden County is going to miss the playoffs, but Sean Green was clearly an impact player for this team this season. Just talk about what you've seen from him.
Yeah, he's very shifty. He's explosive. He's a guy that he's only 5'10", but he can really jump up. He can get the ball. He can catch it at a high point, but he's very good over the middle with that shiftiness, his ability to take screens, tunnel screens, slants, those underneath routes, and then get positive yards afterwards. He's got a lot of quickness and speed, and I feel like it's just about getting the ball in his hands more next season.
Now let's take a look at headline 3. Former Collins Hill wide receiver Travis Hunter is out for the season with an LCL injury. This injury actually stemmed from a non-contact incident in late October practice. Before going down, Hunter had played 7 games this season, registering 28 receptions for 298 yards and 1 touchdown on offense. Plus, on defense, he added 15 tackles. Craig, just talk about the development that you've seen from Travis Hunter at Collins Hill and what he's now been able to do for the Jags.
Yeah, I mean, his trajectory to the NFL from high school was just amazing to watch. One of a trailblazing player that's playing both sides. We know about the Heisman, but this is going to be tough for him. But he's played so much football. He's got so many snaps under his belt and experience. He's just got to stay healthy, and this is a minor setback, but I feel like he'll be fine. We've seen him come back of a pretty significant leg injury his senior year. He came back in record time, so I feel like he'll be ready to go. And just learning this first year of the NFL, I feel like he's going to come back with something to prove.
Now let's take a look at headline 4. Atlanta Tip-Off Club has announced a boys 2025 through 2026 Atlanta All-Metro High School season preseason watch list, and you can see this list on the screen right now. Craig, we've talked about all of these programs going into the basketball season, but just talk about the performance you've seen from some of these players and maybe the impact you're expecting them to make this season.
Yeah, well, Colvin Landry, he is without question the hottest prospect on this list. He's blowing up. He's a 4-star now, committed to UConn. He's probably going to rise up to a 5-star. It's no accident that he's been skyrocketing like this. But some of the other names, you look at Wheeler just dominating this list. Amari James, you got Jerron Salisbury, Kevin Savage. But I'm interested in Chase Lumpkin and McEachern. He's made a big impact already this season. We saw him in that tip-off event against Newton. He had, I believe, 25 of his 27 points in the second half, really took over that game at the guard position. The ball's going to go through him a lot. There's some other great players in that region when you look at Zyree Brown of Pebblebrook, Asa Montgomery of Hillgrove, but Chase Lumpkin has that ability to put himself in that conversation with a Colvin Landry on who's going to be the most dominant player in 6A this season, but also in Cobb County.
And Craig, you mentioned when you look at this list, you see a lot of players from Wheeler, Hillgrove, and McEachern, but which team are you most excited to see this season?
Well, I think it is Wheeler. Thought Hayden made a great point where he said, as talented as Wheeler's been with all their state titles, this is one of the most complete teams and one of the most star-powered teams. They're very experienced. They're coming off the state title last year. This is the team that has that opportunity to potentially run the table, be nationally ranked, and really do what Wheeler does best, and that's put Georgia high school basketball on the map.
Now let's take a look at headline 5. Trio of Hebron Christian girls basketball players are ready to attend D1 schools. Those players are Alana Beckham going to the University of Georgia, Gabby Minus going to Tennessee, and Kobe Barnes going to West Georgia. Craig, what are you most looking forward to seeing from this Hebron Christian team this season?
Well, Holy Innocents was the team last year that ultimately got the title, but Hebron, one of the most dominant girls basketball programs in the state, they'll be right there in the conversation as a favorite to win it this year. They opened the season, this was last night, against Greater Atlanta Christian, won 62-35, a huge statement to open up the season against a good Greater Atlanta Christian team. a battle of two private schools from Gwinnett County. I just feel like it's a big statement, and what they're able to do is not only dominate in the paint, but have that full court pressure, that relentless defense, and just all the experience. This is going to be a very tough team to beat.
And Craig, later in the show, we're going to get to talk about some teams that missed the postseason last season but made it this season. Just talk about some of the teams that you've truly been able to see grow since last season.
Yeah, it's a very interesting list. I think one of the most intriguing teams would be a Stockbridge, who had to pretty much forfeit all their games last year. So that's one that might have an asterisk on it because they're back in the playoffs. Obviously, a very successful team that's been in the hunt for state titles recently out of that great region. But Locust Grove, same thing in that Class 4A, a very tough region with Stockbridge, with Ola. The fact that they weren't in the playoffs last season and then won a region title, there's a couple teams like that on this list. So I'm looking forward to going over that in segment 5.
Yeah, Craig, you mentioned that with that Locust Grove team. I've even been able to see a lot of rebuild personally, being from Henry County, just kind of seeing that program being able to flip overall. But they have a really good quarterback, Armand Parker, really good players on their defense. They had some transfers in, so super excited to see what they can do going forward. Right after this, we're going to get to hear from Lee County head coach Dean Fabrizio. And as I mentioned, our game of the week is going to be Lee County versus Sprayberry. Looking forward to hearing from him right after this break.
Nobody wants to hear the word roaches because who wants to admit they have roaches?
I actually found some weird roaches. I didn't know what they were. I decided to choose Breda. I reached out to them. They check in routinely. They're explaining what they're doing. So there's a lot of clarity in the process as well. I think that just speaks to the level of safety that I feel with the organization.
The facts are, roaches are everywhere in our environment. So what are you doing to keep them out of your home?
Breda, Breda, no need to be afraid of bugs.
For a healthier future together, look to Northside Hospital.
This makes my dad proud. He went through his whole career as an employee. Now I'm the employer, something he didn't achieve.
We are signatory to IBEW and do IBEW people wherever we go that we feel like they are faster and better than any of our competition.
The advantages of being a signatory contractor is you're trained employees. You have unlimited manpower. It allows me to bid on jobs that I ordinarily would not go after.
Man, you know how to do this? Man, I don't even know. I was flipping burgers last week.
Violation, unsportsmanlike conduct, impersonating a craftsman.
Skilled trade unions are well-trained career pros, not part-timers. Construction is a rewarding and lucrative career with the advancement potential, but you have to do it the right way with the right training. Learn how you can be a pro. Find your career at GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com.
You may know Tidal Wave Auto Spa as the world's greatest car wash, but did you know Tidal Wave also has the easiest fundraiser? So easy, our mascots think they can do anything, like making the big play on the big stage. Okay, maybe just a dream, but it is a super easy fundraiser. Just sell wash tickets and watch the money come in. If your team, school, church, or group needs funds, go to TidalWaveAutospa.com and get started today.
Georgia's Rome is the place to be this holiday season. Visit our vibrant downtown. Enjoy live concerts. Go ice skating. Shop holiday markets. And book a Christmas trolley tour. Make your weekend getaway one to remember. Plan your fun now at roamgeorgia.org.
Georgia High School Sports Daily is brought to you by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 613. Electrify your career. And by Breda Pest Management. They handle bugs and critters.
Management Sports Desk. And now we will welcome Lee County football head coach Dean Fabrizio. Coach Fabrizio, thank you so much for joining us today.
Guys, thank you for having me, and thank you for having us on Friday night.
So, Coach, your team is going to face Sprayberry in this first round of playoffs on Friday night. What have you been focusing on in practice this week?
Well, you know, they run a little different style of offense than we've seen this year, so we've had to spend some time. We've had to spend a lot of time on that. And, you know, we've got to be disciplined because it's a misdirection type offense, kind of wing T-ish out of the shotgun, and it forces us to really be disciplined on defense. And it's something, like I said, we haven't seen, so it's a little bit different than what we've been facing this year. They've got some high-end playmakers over there. Obviously, the quarterback, running, throwing, he does a great job. They're very well coached, and they've got, like I said, a lot of playmakers all over the field, so they present a lot of challenges for us.
And, Coach, so I just learned that this is actually your 6th time on the road in your past 32 playoff games. How do you keep your team focused on a road playoff game?
Well, you know, I didn't realize that until somebody brought that up to me today. But they said since, I think, 2017, we've had 24 home playoff games, 2 neutral site games, obviously state championship games, and then we've had this will only be our 6th one on the road. So, you know, we played on the road this year. We've played in tough atmospheres in our region. Obviously, the trip wasn't that far, but, you know, there are no short trips in our region for road games. So it's something we've done this year. It's a little bit farther than normal, but, you know, it's just the situation that we've been dealt. And, you know, when you play in a very tough region, sometimes, you know, good teams are going to end up on the road, and that's where we are this year.
And, Coach, you're talking about how tough your schedule was. You're 7-3. I think statistically you guys had the 6th hardest schedule in your classification, but we talk a lot about teams being battle tested. How important is that in this in the playoff atmosphere?
Well, yeah, it's a huge help. I mean, there's no doubt we've been battle tested. We played a very difficult schedule, just like we do every year, and I think that's going to pay off, and hopefully it'll pay off Friday night with as tough games as we've had this year.
And then, Coach, I wanted to ask kind of about. It's a long road trip, but you kind of touched on it earlier. Y'all play in a really geographically big region. All those South Georgia and Middle Georgia regions are. Do you think that's prepared your team at all for this long road trip?
Well, you know, yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely got us. It's not like you know, we're traveling in town for all our games. We're used to going out of town for road games. Now this is further than we normally go, so it is an adjustment, but. And anytime, you know, you go into Atlanta, you know, the logistic challenges of having to get up there early to avoid the rush hour traffic and find a place to eat and all those things, you know, a lot goes into it. But, you know, we've done it before, and I do think our team is prepared for the trip.
And then, Coach, just how have y'all used this weird bye week between the playoffs and regular season to kind of get healthy and get ready for this game?
Well, it's been good. You know, for several years, we had a bye week the last week of the regular season before we went into the playoffs. And it's a good thing. It allows you to make any adjustments you need to make. It allows you to work on yourself for a week and heal up a little bit. So it was definitely good. But I'm sure it was good for them as well. So that's kind of a wash.
And then with this region, it was kind of unknown what the seedings were going to be in terms of your opponent. When you first saw Sprayberry as your opponent, what went through your head about this team?
Well, they're a good football team. We knew that. We played them last year in the 3rd round. They've got, like I said, a lot of playmakers, and we know it's going to be a tough matchup for us. Last year, we kind of jumped on them early, and things snowballed, and things went our way, and people look at the score and think, oh wow, that was a cakewalk. But we were very concerned going into that game because of the quality team they had. Coach Varver, who was their coach then, had done a great job building that program, and he's moved on. Coach Fominaya has come in and done a phenomenal job building on that, and they got a heck of a team this year. And it's going to be a challenge for us. But we felt this way last year when we played them. Things just kind of went our way. But it's a team, like I said, we played them last year. It's a lot of the same players they've got back, and I'm sure they're going to be excited to get us up there at their place.
And then, Coach, just talk about what you've seen from your community and that support as you head into the playoffs.
Well, we've always got great support here in Lee County. Football means a lot to this community. Football's very important, and they've supported us great throughout this year. It's when you've had as much success as we've had over the last decade, and then when you come off a season like we had last year, when you're undefeated throughout the whole regular season, when you're nationally ranked, when you have we had 4 games last year that Max Preps had top 10 in the nation. When you come off a season with that much hype and that much hoopla and all that. Sometimes when you lose a game or two, you lose to really good teams. Things can kind of it doesn't feel the same, or it's kind of anticlimactic, and and our fan base has still supported us great, and we think we've got a really good football team, and we're excited to try to make a run here in these playoffs.
Then, Coach, I wanted to kind of touch on some of your really good players. Y'all are really talented, a little bit younger than you in years past. But one of those seniors is Lasiah Jackson, just a really, really talented player that's really skyrocketed up recruiting boards lately. 6'3", 108 pounds. Just talk to me about what he brings to this team.
Lasiah is a 4-year start, 3.5-year start. He started in the playoffs his freshman year, and very experienced player for us. Long kid. And, a lot like I used to say about Usmani and Weston last year, as good a player as he is, he's an even better person. And he's a top quality student, as evidenced by his committed to Stanford, and just a great teammate, a great person. And, we're fortunate to have him. And he's really stepped his game up this year. A lot of kids, sometimes the recruiting thing becomes a distraction, but he's a guy that he's really stepped his game up, and he's definitely playing his best football his senior year.
And then, Coach, with this Sprayberry offense, they've got deep threats. They've got a quarterback that can scramble around. It can really spread you guys out defensively. How important is it going to be for you guys just to play fast and have that instinctual defense?
Well, we're going to definitely have to play fast. We've got to do a great job running to the ball. Quarterback does a great job on broken plays and making things. They've got guys that can make you miss all over the field. So we've got to do a great job of being disciplined, but also of getting to that football, because if they make the first guy miss, we better have other guys there. They're going to take the house.
And then we've seen this year Sprayberry, their last game against Woodstock, they had a lot of success on the ground running the ball. How do you feel about your run defense going into this matchup?
Well, we feel like we've got some really good players on defense that have done a great job for us this year. We feel like we faced a lot of really good competition to deal with some injury issues this year and some youth, but we feel like we've gotten a lot better as the year goes on, and they present a lot of challenges both running, throwing the ball, because they're a lot like the Houston County team we face. They're very balanced, and like I said, they've got good running backs, they've got good receivers, they've got a big experienced quarterback. So there's not really an area we could say, oh well, we can kind of not worry about that and focus on some other things. We've got to focus on all of it, and it's going to take all 11 guys on defense every play being focused in and doing a good job for us to come out successfully.
And then, Coach, just talk about overall how much you've seen your team grow since that week 1 of football.
Oh, a lot. This team's dealt with a lot. We've had quarterback issues with injuries, where we've had to kind of go back and forth between quarterbacks. And Marcus Snipes has been healthy now for about 3 weeks, and he played 390 yards county, by far the biggest total this season. So we feel like he's kind of getting in a groove here after all the injuries early in the year. We've got a very young team. Everybody talks about losing Usmani and Weston, but we lost 4 starting offensive linemen off last year's team that are all playing college football. So we've got a lot of talent on our offensive line, but they're young, and they've gotten better and better each week. We feel like as a team we've gotten better and better each week. And like I talked to our guys, we lost 3 close games to 3 really good football teams, and we feel like we can compete with anybody. We got to take it one game at a time. Sprayberry is a top 10 team. It's our 6th or 7th top 10 team we face this year, and they've got a lot of challenges, but we're excited to go up there and play.
Coach, real quick, talk about Jaden Upshaw, what he's brought to the passing game this year as your go-to target.
Jaden's is a 3-year starter for us, and so he's a junior. He's had a big year for us this year. A lot of big plays for us, and big time player, and he does a lot for us. And the thing is, he's a great receiver out there, but he's also underrated as his blocking ability. He's really a dominant player in the run game because he can block so well. He's a big kid, 6'2", 195 pounds, and really plays physical.
Again, that was Lee County football head coach Dean Fabrizio. Coach Fabrizio, thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck on Friday night.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all having me. I'll see you Friday.
We'll be right back after this short break with more Georgia High School Sports Daily. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Georgia High School Sports Daily. We are at the Breda Pest Management Sports Desk, and now we're going to welcome Jack Gallagher to the desk to give us a recruiting update around the state of Georgia. Jack, I want to start with our game of the week. That's going to be Sprayberry versus Lee County at Sprayberry, but we got to see the Sprayberry team earlier this season. We got to see players like Jordan Edmonds and Keelan Jones. Just talk about both of these players.
Yeah, let's start with them. Coach Fabrizio talked about it a little bit, talking about stopping a talented Sprayberry team. He was referring to these 2 players, Jordan Edmonds and Keelan Jones. Both play both ways. Jordan Edmonds, a 5-star, still committed to Bama. No drama in that recruitment. Keelan Jones also plays both ways. He's committed to Georgia. He'll play safety at Georgia. There's also no drama there. So with this Sprayberry team, the difference between Sprayberry and Lee County in terms of both of these teams have elite talent on the outside. Sprayberry, these guys play both ways. They play offense and defense. Lee County, you guys mentioned it, Lasiah Jackson, he's really only playing defense. And then Jaden Upshaw sticks to receiver. But I want to talk about these Lee County guys because Sprayberry hasn't really played a team that can match them talent-wise, especially with the wide receivers and the DBs that are playing for Sprayberry. I think Lee County is up for the challenge, and it starts with 4-star cornerback Lasiah Jackson. He's committed to Stanford. There was a lot of Auburn buzz with this recruitment. In fact, it felt like it was inevitable that he was going to flip there. But obviously Auburn fires Hugh Freeze, so things are still up in the air there. And then in regards to his recruitment with Stanford, an interesting situation with Stanford and their head coach. They fired their coach in March, and so they've had an interim coach all year. Lasiah Jackson commits there in July, so this interim coach has been there for the duration of his commitment to Stanford, but I'm curious to see if Stanford goes a new direction with their head coach. Maybe we see that Auburn buzz or some SEC buzz pick back up with Lasiah Jackson. And then 4-star wide receiver Jaden Upshaw, 2027 recruit. He's a top 100 player nationally, leading the team in touchdowns and receiving yards for Lee County. Miami and Texas A&M have the most buzz in his recruitment right now, but it's early. He has 20 Power 4 offers, can kind of take his pick of the litter. So I'm curious to see how that recruitment shapes up. And then another crucial piece for this Lee County team is 4-star linebacker Gregory Batson. He is the second leading tackler for this team behind Lasiah Jackson. He committed to FSU last Friday. He picked FSU over Florida, some in-state schools, but still early there. And then Coach Norvell at FSU probably on the hot seat. Maybe not imminent, but a change might happen down there at FSU. So we'll see how that shapes out. And these Lasiah Jackson, Gregory Batson, the leading tacklers for Lee County, they got to stop a Sprayberry rushing attack that rushes for 263 yards a game at this point. So lots of talent on the outside for both of these teams. Very curious to see how it plays out. It's going to be fun.
And then, Jack, there's a couple other players that you want to talk about. Quantavious Wiggins at Langston Hughes, a couple Douglas County players, Camden County players. Just talk me through this list.
Yeah, well, let's start with Quantavious Wiggins. He flips from FIU to Wisconsin. Amari Latimer, also a running back, committed to Wisconsin. So curious to see, I wrote about this today in an article that will soon go up, but curious to see if Quantavious Wiggins, an in-state product, a friend of Amari Latimer, helps or hurts his chances with staying in this Wisconsin class. Amari Latimer, Miami now involved with him, and then Tennessee and Ohio State also heavily involved with Amari Latimer. That commitment to Wisconsin for Amari Latimer is probably on thin ice a little bit. And then just recently, Texas wide receiver, running back recruit Legend Bay flipped from Tennessee to Ohio State. So there's this trio of running backs that are involved with Wisconsin and Ohio State, Amari Latimer being one of them. Quantavious Wiggins flips to Wisconsin. So it's kind of a carousel to see where all of these guys end up. I think Amari Latimer probably does not end up at Wisconsin, but Wisconsin obviously takes Quantavious Wiggins, a fantastic running back in his own right. So Wisconsin will take one or two running backs in this cycle. I think it ends up being one, and I think they lose Amari Latimer, but Quantavious Wiggins is a great pickup for Wisconsin.
And then, Jack, also, so we know in December that this recruiting period is going to hit a dead period. So who are some of the players that you're still looking forward to committing before that maybe, and some of the most exciting commitments you've seen this season?
Yeah, well, I think one of the recruitments I'm watching, obviously, is Amari Latimer. We just talked about, and the Quantavious Wiggins recruitment where he just flips and wraps up. But I think those are two recruitments that have been fun to watch and still aren't over. But even in the class of 2027, there are some recruitments that are we still want to watch. Joshua Semapel, Douglas County offensive tackle, 6'9", 340 pounds, one of the largest recruits in the 2027 class for sure. He just named his top 10. He's got Miami, South Carolina, Georgia, Nebraska, Tennessee, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia Tech, Ole Miss. That's his final 10. I think of those schools, Tennessee and Georgia are standing out early, but obviously he's a top 30 player in America, top 3 player in Georgia, and he's a top 5 offensive tackle. Those are always prized possessions. So I think for Sam Appel, that is going to be a recruitment to watch as he narrows it down for the first time, probably looking to narrow it down sooner. And then another one of his 2027 recruits, Camden County 4-star wide receiver Sean Green. You guys touched on him a little bit. He just narrowed down to Florida State, Georgia Tech, and Georgia. Those in-state schools can never be taken out of the mix. They're always going to be hard to beat. But he said several times that Florida State is his leader. That's another recruit where I'm curious to see what happens with Florida State in terms of Mike Norvell and their head coach. He said it's his leader. He's probably looking to commit in the springtime, from what I'm hearing. So we'll see if anything changes by then, but that's a little bit of news from Camden County. Obviously, some bigger breaking news from Camden County. But Sean Green narrows it down to 3. Florida State leads, but obviously those 3 schools all still in the mix for Sean Green.
And then with players like Joshua Sam Appel, we got to actually see him this season against Langston Hughes in that Douglas County-Langston Hughes matchup. Just talk about this impact that he brings to the field.
Yeah, well, he's, especially with that size, he's kind of an anchor for this Douglas County team. You can count on him to kind of dominate that tackle position, not worry about any danger coming in from that side of the offensive line. Obviously, at 6'9", 340 pounds, that is as college ready as you're going to get. Doesn't really need to gain or lose a little bit of weight. Good athlete and great size. So just a dominant force for Douglas County, and that's going to be a very fun recruitment to watch.
And then real quick with him, he's narrowed it down to a top 10, but do you feel like he's getting closer to making that final decision?
Yeah, I think when you narrow it down to a top 10, there's always a few schools that are, a top 3, maybe a top 5 that's still in front of the back half of that top 10. And I think from what I've seen, Tennessee and Georgia are making a great impression, but obviously Texas A&M has done great work in the state of Georgia as well. So I don't think he's gotten it down to maybe 5 or 3, but I think there are a few schools like Tennessee and Georgia that he's visited and really likes, and maybe not ready to announce new news in his recruitment, but at least those players will be, or those teams will be players in this recruitment until the end.
As we mentioned, our game of the week is going to be Sprayberry versus Lee County. We'll get to hear from Sprayberry head coach Pete Fominaya right after this break. Stay tuned.
Customer service is everything in our industry, and one thing our clients love is when they call Breda, they get a live representative. At Breda, you get the attention you need and deserve right when you call in. Your appointment gets scheduled right then and there, and you get a specific time, no window of arrival. Our staff are your neighbors. They know what's going on in your community, and they're invested in doing it better.
Breda, Breda, no need to be afraid of bugs.
Dang, where you get this car?
You need to join the union.
The union?
Absolutely. You can get 10 of these.
Union construction workers earn the highest wages with the best benefits and the most protection in the construction industry. Find your career in construction. Go to GeorgiaConstructionCareers.com and start your future today.
A journeyman with Local 85, when you turn out, you can be hitting 6 figures.
Hey, I have your back, you have my back. We're gonna do this together. We're one for all for one.
College just wasn't for me. Let's look into actual career jobs that wouldn't take college, where I wouldn't, lose money and all that. Instead of losing a lot more money at the end, why not make money and make more money at the end?
You may know Tidal Wave Auto Spa as the world's greatest car wash, but did you know Tidal Wave also has the easiest fundraiser? So easy, our mascots think they can do anything, like making the big play on the big stage. Okay, maybe just a dream, but it is a super easy fundraiser. Just sell wash tickets and watch the money come in. If your team, school, church, or group needs funds, go to TidalWaveAutoSpa.com and get started today.
Nothing is as pure and special as high school sports in the state of Georgia. And Score Atlanta is its #1 fan. High school sports are about families, kids chasing their dreams, communities supporting their teams year in and year out, neighborhood signs, and off-season workouts when nobody's looking. It's the biggest stage that young athletes get to climb for the very first time. And Score Atlanta wants to connect your brand with Georgia high school sports in ways that have never been available before. In addition to our Georgia High School Sports Daily Show, Score Atlanta provides continuous coverage of the Georgia high school football season through its televised games, stories, and rankings. Score Atlanta puts on some of the most notable events like the Corky Cal Dave Hunter Classic, the Georgia High School Football Hall of Fame, and the Georgia Elite Classic. All of these elements offer sponsors exclusive opportunities and exposure. So let's talk about how you can reach millions of people who enjoy Georgia high school sports. For more information, contact Score Atlanta today.
Welcome back to Georgia High School Sports Daily. We are at the Breda Pest Management Sports Desk, and now we will welcome Sprayberry football head coach Pete Fominaya. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So, Coach, after looking at what your team has been able to do this season offensively, consistently putting up high numbers, what has impressed you most about your offensive unit?
Well, I think when you look at our group, we rushed for 2,600 yards this year, and that's just not one guy or two guys. We've got 4 or 5 different guys that can carry the ball, that can be a real threat. I think that the boys have really bought into this team concept that we've promoted throughout the season, and that we've shown balance, even though that we're running the ball at a high rate. I think the kids have really, embraced of taking what's open and going out there and giving our best showing.
And Coach, this is your first year with this program. Clearly, you've been able to see a lot of success, but what has been your favorite part of leading this group of athletes?
Being in the Metro, you get kids that are transient, and this program was without a coach for about a month. And all these kids stuck together because they really believe in each other. They're a team. They've grown up being Yellow Jackets. A lot of them are second generation Yellow Jackets. They've been playing football here for 70 years. And there's just a lot of pride in this community. And I'm just really excited to be a part of that.
And then, Coach, you were talking about the rushing output this season. So last year, you guys played more games than you have now, 2,200 total rushing yards, 31 touchdowns. You guys have already surpassed that. So do you think that's been the biggest difference when people look at Sprayberry is you guys have really been able to solidify that run game, get more pieces involved?
Yeah, we like the NFL model. If you look at the NFL, the days of 2,000-yard rushers are gone. You want to have fresh legs at all times. You want kids that in the fourth quarter still got a lot of juice. And that's what we really sold the kids is that you're not going to get a ton of opportunities, but when you do, you need to make the most of it. And we've got some real star power. We've got some great wide receivers. We've got some really good offensive linemen. But our identity is going to be, to be a physical brand of football, a brand of football that, translates in the postseason. And, I think that we've been able to do that.
Then, Coach, I wanted to ask about y'all's really tough region schedule. Y'all play in a region where you really cannot take a week off and have to play week after week really hard. Do you think that set y'all up well for the playoffs and got y'all ready for single elimination play?
Yeah, I was really impressed with our region. It's my first year in the region. There's some real quality coaches. Everyone is really detailed. Everyone has their kids ready on Friday night. And, going up to the last game of the season, all 4 playoff positions could have been shuffled either way. We're fortunate that we get to be at home. I think we're on a 12 or 13 home game winning streak. So, I think our home stadium is a special place where our crowds come out and they support us. And I think our boys play at a high level here.
And then, Coach, I wanted to ask about kind of y'all's defense stepping up. Y'all defense played well all year, but especially after that Creekview overtime game, it really feels like y'all have stepped up and are playing at a completely different level.
I always tell our kids, like, it's not the best football team that wins championships. It's the team that's playing the best late in the season. And I think that's who we are right now. I think we're playing at a high level. All three phases of the game are really coming together. And I see improvement week in and week out. A lot of times when you have a team of our caliber, you're peaking in week 3. For us, that was never the goal. The goal was always to be peaking week 9, week 10, and as you transition into this playoff game. We've got a really tough matchup, so we'll have to play our best football going throughout the rest of the season.
And then, Coach, I wanted to ask about how have y'all used this bye week? It's not something we normally have going into the playoffs unless you've scheduled a bye week for the final week of the season, but how have y'all used this odd bye week to get ready and get healthy for the playoffs?
Well, for us, it's critical because of our opponent. When you talk about a team like Lee County, I think the rest of the state wants to be what they have been, like their model of consistency, their model of success. And it sometimes takes time to kind of replicate those things in practice because they do so many things. So for us, it was an opportunity, number one, to heal up last week, and then number two, to start preparing for this opponent. So every day matters for us. I think from a teaching dynamic, we do some things differently in the Metro than they have to do in South Georgia. So to give us the extended time, I think plays in our favor.
And then, Coach, we talked earlier this season after the big win over Creekview overtime game, but was there a point in this year where you really were just looking at this team, you realized this is a special group, we have a serious chance in 5A to make some noise?
Well, I think when your best 2 or 3 players are your hardest workers, when you got your best chance. When I am getting ready for practice and I look out the window and I see Jordan Edmonds out there already warming up, and Keelan Jones and Jaden Duckett and, some of our Kobe Lewis, Cash Borowski, when you see those guys already outside dressed and ready for practice and you're not dragging them out of the locker room, that's when you got a chance to have a special group. So that's what I've seen out about the most from these kids is that they really care about each other. And when the team cares about each other, it can play above its talent level. We're fortunate that we've got a really high talent level, but, I can see the kids really meshing and they're happy for each other. There's not a lot of kids that are like, well, I wish I had more catches, or I wish I had more rushes, or I wish I had more tackles. I think they're just excited to see the success and winning week in and week out.
And Coach, you talk about being that strong team going into the end of season with football, but just talk about that biggest area of growth you've seen from your team since week 1.
Well, I think it was understanding the buy-in. I was fortunate enough to win the championship in Florida, and the later you get into the season, the more physical you have to become. And that'll be tested really quick, matching up with an elite Lee County team. But the physicality that is needed at this time of year is something that we really preach to the kids. Is that we have to be physical. We have to come out and be a physical style football team because that's what translates in the playoffs. So once I saw that they bought into the way that we were going to practice, how physical we needed to be, I knew we had a chance to be successful.
And then, Coach, you talk about players like Jordan Edmonds. Clearly, we know he's a very talented player, brings that skill set to your team. But just talk more about that leadership aspect that you've seen from him this season and how that's going to benefit your team going into the playoffs.
He's relentless. He treats everything like a pro. A Monday in the Metro, as you guys know, we had that cold front come through, and for the average high school kid, that was a hard practice. To be out there in those elements, to be out there and kind of weathering the storm, if you will. But he handles everything like a pro. Like we have those conversations if he's fortunate enough to play professionally one day. Like, this is what you play and this is what, so like, he came out there and it didn't faze him one bit. Like, he was the example for our players. He came out there and was first in lines and was going through every drill full speed and didn't focus on what he couldn't control, but focus on what he could.
And then, Coach, just to close things out, as I mentioned, it's your first year with this group of athletes. What are you most excited for and looking forward to heading into the playoffs with this group?
Right out the gate, the team that beat Sprayberry last year is our first round opponent. So for us to get this opportunity and to get to compete against, an elite program like this, I think is huge for us. I talked about in my interview process that I wanted Sprayberry to be known as one of the best programs in the state, and good teams come and go, right? Like every high school will have a good team every few years, but the elite programs in this state, it doesn't matter who graduates. The standard is still the standard. If I was to ask you what the best programs are in this state, year in and year out, they've got great players, but year in and year out, their standard is high. So that's really been our focus is trying to become an elite program in the state, to be consistent, to play at a high level every single week.
Again, that was Sprayberry football head coach Pete Fominaya. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck to your team on Friday night.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
We'll be right back after this short break with more Georgia High School Sports Daily. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back into Georgia High School Sports Daily. We are at the Breda Pest Management Sports Desk. And guys, now we're just going to take a look at some teams that missed the postseason last season, but will make it this season. We're going to start off with this 6A classification. So here you're going to have Richmond Hill, Paulding County, Marietta, and North Forsyth. One of the teams that I specifically want to ask about is this Marietta team. Just talk about maybe some of that adversity that they saw this season, were able to overcome, and just the impact they might make in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, real quick, when you look at these four teams, they all have tough matchups. Richmond Hill is going to have to play Buford, Paulding County, North Cobb, North Forsyth, Carrollton, Marietta, Harrison. But I think out of all of them, Marietta is a team that when you look at the back half of the season, how close they were to winning a region title, the improvements they made, I feel like they have the best chance to maybe steal that road win. But I certainly think Marietta is a team that last year when they missed the playoffs, it was kind of unheard of for a powerhouse like Marietta, but I've been thoroughly impressed.
Yeah, I think when you look at the pedigree of these schools, Richmond Hill and Marietta are above the other two. Nothing against Paulding County or North Forsyth, but those are schools that are good programs, but are, at least we haven't seen them compete for state titles before. Marietta and Richmond Hill are two really good programs. Marietta was down. Richard Morgan, I don't know what happened, but they just weren't at that same level as that 2019 state championship team. But what Cameron Duke's been able to do, I'm just so impressed with, and I'm really excited to see what he does moving forward.
And guys, before we take a look at this 5A classification, you kind of mentioned the caliber of some of these teams, but with North Forsyth, they're going to face Carrollton, hard matchup. Do you think that they have the opportunity to be competitive in that matchup?
It's going to be really tough. I think just being back in the playoffs is a good sign for them. I think Carrollton's one of the best teams in the state right now, nationally ranked. It will be tough, but I mean, North Forsyth, they beat North Atlanta this year, last year's region champion. Out of that, they're battle tested. I feel like they're going to be able to keep it close, but ultimately Carrollton's going to pull away.
Now let's take a look at this 5A classification. So here you're going to have Statesboro, Northgate, Shiloh, Shamley, Creekview, and Seconder. Two teams I want to talk about here. That Shamley team, we got to see them play earlier this season, had the opportunity to talk to their coach, but they're a very sophomore-heavy team right now. They have quarterback Braden Doss, sophomore season. Super excited to see that growth that he can take, but they were really concerned on if they were even going to be able to make the playoffs. What kind of impact would you potentially expect them to make?
Yeah, well, it was a great year for them. And what's interesting, Shiloh and Chamblee, both out of that Region 4 in Class 5A, were teams that missed the playoffs last year that made it this year. So I feel like both of them are trending in the right direction. They'll have tough first-round matchups, as you see right there. But having two teams that missed the playoffs last year make it out of that region shows kind of the improvements of both those teams.
Yeah, I think when you look at that region, that's one of those regions that there's outside of, I believe, Woodward Academy, there's not really a hierarchy. Every team can make the playoffs. Every team can miss the playoffs. And what Chamblee's been able to do this year, after being even younger last year, has been really impressive. And I think Shiloh is even more impressive considering that they've been down for a handful of years. It's not just a one-year drought like Chamblee was. And they're the 2 seed coming out of that region. Just a really good season for Shiloh.
Yeah, and then real quick, Northgate 2-8 last year. They've had a great turnaround, and then Seconder being able to beat Lanier in that final game to get their first ever playoff berth. Super impressed.
Now let's take a look at this 4A classification. Here you're going to see Locust Grove, Stockbridge, Griffin, Lithonia, Centennial, and Dalton. And Greg, we talked about this earlier in the show, but with programs like Stockbridge, they had to forfeit a lot of their games last season. Now they've been able to make a really good impact this season. They have some really, really good receivers. I'm super excited. They're actually going to see Blessed Trinity in that first round. That's going to be a really, really good matchup. And then Locust Grove, they have a good quarterback. I mentioned Armand Parker, a really good D-line. They had some transfers come in from Kell, some new coaches come in. Just really have been able to see a turnaround in that program, and excited to see what they're going to do in the playoffs.
Yeah, and then you mentioned Stockbridge, but how about Locust Grove, a team that missed the playoffs last year? year, earning the #1 seed. Very impressed with what we've seen with Locust Grove.
Yeah, and then I think another team you have to be impressed with is that Dalton team. This is a traditional powerhouse. Missed the playoffs for the first time in a little while last year. New coach Chris Pruitt's up there has done an amazing job, especially down the stretch. Offense is one of the best in the state. I'm really excited to see what they're doing, if not this playoffs, but moving forward into the next few seasons.
So we don't run out of time. Let's look at this 3A classification. I'm not going to list them all, but you're going to see them here on your screen, guys. Just talk about some of the teams in this classification that might be able to make the biggest impact in the playoffs in the first round.
I think you got to go with Troop.
Yeah, I think when you look at Troop, this is a team that competed for that region title with Sandy Creek, with LaGrange. This is a team that's not used to missing the playoffs and just had an amazing season this year.
Now let's take a look at this 2A classification. Again, you're going to see these teams on your screen, guys. Same thing, just same extended question. Who's going to make this biggest impact?
Probably Franklin County or Sonoraville.
Yeah, I think Franklin County and Sonoraville are the two teams that are playing good football. Kip Atlanta and Columbus aren't amazing teams, but congratulations on them for making the playoffs. It's a huge step forward for both those programs.
Let's take a look at our D1 classification. Guys, same thing. Who's going to make the biggest impact?
Well, I think this is going to be tough sledding for all these teams, but East Lawrence getting the playoffs is another Middle Georgia team that's able to get that taste of playoff success. And then Pepperell's had a big turnaround season as well.
And then also for D2, you're going to have Seminole County, Randolph-Clay, Lanier County, Screven County, Tretland, Georgia Military, Chattahoochee County, and Mount Zion-Carroll. A lot of those teams, that's a big group that didn't make it last year. Super excited to see what they're going to be able to do. Again, I just want to mention our game of the week is going to be that first round of playoffs. It's going to be Lee County versus Sprayberry. We had the opportunity to hear from both of these coaches today. Both of these teams are going into this matchup super strong offensively and defensively. Super excited to see this matchup in this first round. See who's going to advance to that second round. Again, we will be right back here tomorrow with more Georgia High School Sports Daily. Tune in.
We saw some squirrels were trying to get into the attic. I hear those squirrels still scampering through because I didn't go through those services initially.
Our job is to go up there and figure out where they're getting in and trap and remove and get those unwanted guests out. But then the next big step is not just seal the entry point where the critter got in, but seal the entire roof line. The most common mistake is only sealing the entry point you see.
Breda, no need to be afraid of bugs.
Hey, is the power off on this?
I don't know. Just take it off.
Safety violation, unsafe work conditions.
In the construction trades unions, safety is our highest priority, and we train you to recognize and speak out on unsafe working conditions so that everyone arrives and goes home safely. Learn about careers in construction at georgiaconstructioncareers.com.
For a healthier future together, look to Northside Hospital.
What happens after you graduate? Will you go to the next level? Will people have your back in the heat of battle? Will you still train like a champion in the pursuit of greatness? You will when you become an IBEW electrical worker. Join our team. Visit IBEW613.org.